You won't believe what this cursed locket did to an entire town. The truth will haunt your dreams. In the mid-19th century, a small rural town in the heart of England was plagued by a series of unexplained tragedies. A local legend arose, pointing to the source of the misfortunes. A cursed item that had fallen into the hands of an unsuspecting resident, bringing doom and despair to the town. Henry Addington, a young man with a passion for antiquities, often visited nearby villages and markets to expand his collection of curiosities. One sunny afternoon, he stumbled upon a peculiar-looking locket at a rundown stall. It was intricately designed, with engravings of demonic figures and swirling patterns that seemed to shift and change as he examined it. Despite the eerie aura surrounding the object, Henry felt an irresistible urge to possess it, so he purchased the locket without a second thought. Days after acquiring the locket, Henry began to experience vivid nightmares. In these dreams, he was pursued by terrifying creatures that seemed to emerge from the very depths of hell. He also began to hear whispers in his home, urging him to commit unspeakable acts of violence. Henry, once a mild-mannered man, found himself consumed by rage and hostility. As the weeks went by, the darkness that had taken hold of Henry began to spread throughout the town. Livestock were found mutilated in the fields, crops withered and died, and a series of mysterious fires destroyed several homes. Neighbors turned against one another, and friendships that had lasted for years were suddenly severed. Desperate to rid himself of the locket and its malevolent influence, Henry sought the advice of a local priest, Father O'Sullivan. The priest, sensing the evil that lay within the locket, agreed to perform an exorcism to cleanse the cursed item. The ritual was conducted in the dead of night, in the small church at the heart of the town. As Father O'Sullivan began the exorcism, a violent storm erupted outside the church. Lightning illuminated the night sky, and the wind howled like a chorus of tormented souls. Inside, the locket began to vibrate, and the demonic engravings seemed to come to life, writhing and twisting like serpents. The air grew cold and heavy, and an overwhelming sense of dread filled the room. In the midst of the ritual, the church doors burst open, and a figure shrouded in darkness entered the sanctuary. The stranger, cloaked in a tattered black robe, approached the altar where the locket lay. His voice, a guttural growl that seemed to reverberate through the very walls of the church, commanded the priest to stop the exorcism. Father O'Sullivan, however, remained resolute. He held his crucifix high and continued the sacred rite. As he recited the final words, the locket emitted an ear-piercing screech, and the engraving seemed to burn with a fiery red light. The stranger screamed in agony, then vanished into the shadows. The storm outside subsided, and a calm settled over the town. Father O'Sullivan, weakened by the ordeal, entrusted the locket to Henry, instructing him to bury it in a place where it could never again bring harm to others. Henry took the locket to the outskirts of the town, digging a deep hole in the cold, damp earth and placing the cursed object within it. He covered the hole with soil and marked the spot with a circle of salt. The darkness that had descended upon the town gradually lifted, and life slowly returned to normal. The townsfolk, though forever haunted by the memory of those terrible weeks, moved forward, rebuilding their lives and their community. But the locket, buried deep within the earth, continued to pulse with an unholy energy. Henry, though relieved of the object's immediate influence, could never shake the feeling that the evil it contained had not been entirely vanquished. He spent the rest of his life researching the locket's origins, hoping to uncover a way to destroy it completely. Henry's quest for answers led him to a centuries-old legend about a powerful demon who had been imprisoned within the locket by a skilled sorcerer. The demon, it was said, could be released only by a willing human who succumbed to the locket's corrupting influence. The curse would then spread, wreaking havoc and destruction until the locket was either cleansed or the demon set free. Though Henry could find no definitive way to destroy the locket, he documented his findings in a hidden journal, which he passed down through his family for generations. The Addingtons became the keepers of this dark secret, and their ancestors would occasionally visit the burial site to ensure the locket remained undisturbed. The town itself never fully recovered from the ordeal. The events surrounding the cursed locket became a local legend, passed down through the generations as a chilling cautionary tale. Residents would whisper about the demonic item and the horrors it had unleashed, urging their children to stay away from the cursed ground where it was buried. Discover the ancient artifact that unleashed hell on a small Appalachian town. The horrors will shock you. In the early 1900s, a remote town in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia was forever changed by the arrival of a mysterious artifact. The town of Black Hollow had been a peaceful and close-knit community, untouched by the troubles of the outside world. That all changed when a local coal miner named Jedediah Collins discovered an ancient horn buried deep within the mountain. Jedediah, a curious and adventurous man, was intrigued by the horn's strange appearance. It was carved from a dark, almost black material, and adorned with grotesque figures that seemed to dance and twist around its surface. Enthralled by his find, Jedediah took the horn home, unknowingly bringing with him a dark presence that would come to torment the people of Black Hollow. In the days following the discovery of the horn, Jedediah began to hear strange noises in his home. Whispers echoed through the walls, and the sounds of scratching and scraping filled the night. As the disturbances grew louder and more insistent, Jedediah was plagued by a growing sense of dread, and his once vibrant demeanor was replaced by a hollow, haunted gaze. Soon, the malevolent energy that had taken hold of Jedediah began to seep into the town. Livestock were found slaughtered, their carcasses torn apart by an unseen force. Mysterious illnesses spread through the community, afflicting even the strongest and healthiest residents. Families were torn apart by paranoia and distrust, and the once close-knit town was consumed by fear and suspicion. Desperate for answers, Jedediah turned to the town's elder, Agnes Miller, known for her wisdom and knowledge of the occult. When she laid eyes on the horn, she immediately sensed the sinister energy that emanated from it. She recognized the artifact as an ancient summoning instrument, used by a long-forgotten cult to call forth dark entities from the netherworld. Agnes knew that the only way to end the town's suffering was to banish the evil spirit that had been unleashed by the horn. To do so, she would need to perform a complex and dangerous ritual, one that required the combined efforts of the entire town. Reluctantly, the townspeople agreed to help, fearing the consequences of allowing the darkness to continue to spread. On a moonless night, the people of Black Hollow gathered in the town square. As the wind whispered through the trees, Agnes led the townspeople in a series of incantations and prayers, imploring the heavens to free them from the malevolent spirit. As the ritual reached its climax, the horn began to tremble and vibrate, emitting an eerie, discordant sound that seemed to resonate through the very souls of those present. Suddenly, a towering figure emerged from the shadows, its form shifting and changing like smoke in the wind. Its eyes burned with a fiery rage, and its voice, a deep and guttural growl, echoed through the night. The entity demanded that the ritual be stopped, and that the horn be returned to the darkness from whence it came. With the courage of the entire town behind her, Agnes stood her ground, continuing the ritual and calling upon the powers of light to banish the entity. As the final words of the incantation were spoken, the horn shattered into 1,000 fragments, and the entity let out a deafening, anguished scream before disappearing into the night. The air in Black Hollow seemed to lighten, and the oppressive darkness that had taken hold of the town began to fade. Grateful for their deliverance, the townspeople pledged to never forget the horrors they had endured, and to forever remain vigilant against the darkness that lay waiting just beyond the edge.